We are the Reds Down Under, and this is our podcast.
Well, Liverpool fans, we are certainly buzzing after that win against Galatasaray. Welcome to Countdown to kick off your home for each and every Liverpool Premier League pre-match build-up. Tom, this weekend, we're matching shirts, by the way, which is something we've done on a few pods this year, but it's Brighton away at the Amex. They play that scrappy but high intensity football like you've mentioned to me. This is going to be a tricky test, but based off what we saw in the Champions League, the Reds are playing some good football at the minute.
Well, I don't know at the minute, but in this exact minute, we were fantastic. We were brilliant against Galatasaray, mate. What a way to wake up this morning and watch that. And yeah, a tough game against Brighton, mate. None of them are easy in the Premier League, and going the Amex is always a bit of a tricky one and a crap one for the Reds who are travelling down there. It'll be like a 7-hour bus journey. Yeah, Brighton, I think scrappy's the word that I used when we were having a chat before this, and I expect it to be scrappy. And not because they're not a good football team. Like, they're definitely a team that want to play, but they'll play high intensity football. They'll look to get the ball up the pitch as quick as they can. Um, and one of the things that really strikes me about Brighton, mate, is sort of similar to that sort of Klopp style football, if you like, where they will press, they will be intense to get the ball back in the top third of the pitch from their perspective. And if they don't win the ball back, they're more than happy to give fouls away. Like, I was looking at the stats, and the amount of fouls they've given away in the Premier League this year is a very high number, which I actually haven't written down. But they have got 74 yellow cards, which is absolutely plenty. So I think that just sort of shows, mate, they want to get the ball back. They want to attack as quick as they can. And if they can't, then they're more than happy to stop you and break it down. So Liverpool have got to be like as prepared as they can be for that.
We know Brighton sit 12th on 40 points, 9 points behind the Reds. And like you mentioned, Tom, they've had that up and down season, haven't they? They've been good in patches. We know Arsenal went there a couple of weeks ago and pinched a 1-0 victory, but I watched the game and I thought, Brighton sort of should have salvaged something from it. But where do you see their threats coming from? Because obviously they've got the likes of Matoma, who probably you could argue hasn't fully been on his game this year, but is still a dangerous player out wide. Minte, there's so many threats for this Brighton side, but similar to like Sunderland the other week, they sort of plays that collective unit. So are you singling out a few plays in this one that can hurt Liverpool? Or are you just thinking, there's 11 men on the park, they're going to do their best to stop Liverpool?
I think they'll play the same way, irregardless of who's on the pitch, mate. And I think Matoma's been out with injuries. I think he struggled a lot with injuries recently. And I seen the Brighton manager talking about it last week about whether he would play in the previous game, and I don't think he did. I don't think he featured at all. So whether Matoma plays or not is a point of interest, because if he does, he would take up that left hand side, and Minte, as you say, on the right. And Minte is lightning quick. Both of them boys are absolutely lightning quick. But I think from my perspective on things, you look at Kerkez and Frimpong, who both had really decent games in the Champions League. I would expect them to both be able to deal with those two players as much as possible. And then, of course, you got big Danny Welbeck up front, who just never seems to slow down, does he? He's at 10 Premier League goals this season so far. And, if he has a couple of good weeks, he might be able to push himself up towards sort of 15, couldn't he? So there's plenty of threats for Brighton, there's no doubt. But for me, I look at it and I look at their back four, and I think they've got some decent players in there with Duncan and Van Heck. But I think you can get at them. There's not a lot of pace there, and I think Ekitike might have an absolutely joyous affair in the Amex.
That'd certainly be the goal. Ekitike grabbed the goal against Galatasaray, which would have been good for his confidence. But let's move to the Reds. Brighton have won 2 of their last 3 Premier League clashes at the Amex against Liverpool at home. And Tom, it's been the case of all season. How do Liverpool carry that Champions League form over into the Premier League? Because we spoke about us playing great football at the minute, but I think we played great football in the Champions League overall. I know we've had tricky tests away from home, but yeah, what's the key to sort of carrying the good performances from the Champions League back into the Premier League this weekend?
Well, I think there's 3 important things that go in Liverpool's favour for this football match, and 3 things that we should look at. I think the first one is that Brighton will try and play football. And I think that's obviously something that's consistent in the Champions League. You're playing teams from around Europe who are used to playing good football in their leagues. And I think that's what Liverpool have found this season. I think that's why we've done well in the Champions League. It's when we've played teams who don't really want to play a lot of football is when we've struggled. That'd be the first thing. I think the second thing is the intensity that we shown at Anfield against Galatasaray from the first minute. We took the kick off, we put the ball straight out of play. We weren't interested in keeping it round the back. We give it back to them and we said, right, we're going to press you. And I think that's the attitude Liverpool need. And I think the third thing is that Arne Slot made a big tactical decision in the game against Galatasaray because to me anyway, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a tactical genius by any stretch, but it looked like the manager adopted a slightly different formation and it looked more like a diamond with Mo Salah, a lot more narrow than what you would expect them to see alongside Ekatike, and the formation continued that way after he made the changes. And I think what that did was it allowed space for Kirkes on the left and Frimpong on the right to have a good crack at Galatasaray and create overloads. And I think if Liverpool adopt the same mentality and the tactical style against Brighton, there's no reason why we shouldn't go and win the game.
Well, I was going to touch on that, the Mo Salah coming inside with Ekatike to allow the fullbacks on forward. I'll get to that in a sec, but I want to talk about the load on Liverpool lately because Brighton will take you back to that 3-0 clash in the FA Cup a few weeks ago when Liverpool put Brighton to the sword at Anfield. Brighton have only played 4 matches since then to Liverpool's 7, and we know Liverpool are in more competitions than Brighton. But do you feel like fatigue could play a factor in this? And Brighton being fresh at home, they haven't played much football recently, and I'm not saying they're in a relegation battle or a battle for the top 5 or anything, but is this a game where Slot needs to rotate plays, especially considering how fresh Brighton are?
It's a good point. It's a good point, but what we've got over 3 days of rest before that game, which I would say is a reasonable amount of rest for a team competing on three fronts at the moment. And although, yes, there hasn't been wholesale changes by the manager, he's been really up against it. So he's tried to play a strong team every time he plays. But, I think Ekatike has had little moments of rest in the FA Cup. I think notably he was rested there. Gakpo's came in and out of the team a little bit more recently. So he should have fresh enough legs. Rio is obviously ready to go. Chiesa could be ready to go at any moment. And then you look at like Curtis Jones hasn't played a lot of football lately. He could fancy a crack in there as well. So and Kanate got a rest as well, didn't he? For Gomez last weekend. So I think the manager's got the options. I don't think fatigue should be an issue. I think it's mate. I think it's just a case of attitude, and Liverpool need to be bang at it.
It's going to be interesting to see, yeah, how we approach the game, whether we keep that same formation. I thought it worked well, Salah and Ekatike, allowing Kirkes and Frimpong in behind. We know Frimpong had a disallowed goal for offside. We could have had 6, 7, 8 goals against Galatasaray, but we won't get into that. Let's move to the one bold call, and this one I struggled with a little bit this week. And talking about Jeremy Frimpong, like I did a second ago, I think him and Kirkes are starting to come into their own. Obviously, they haven't played. There hasn't been a handful of games where the two of them have started at both fullbacks. We've had Joe Gomez come into the side, Andy Robinson, who's impressed. But my bold call for this week is that Frimpong scores. What about you?
That's an interesting shout. That's an interesting shout. Um, for me, I'm gonna go with Kirk's assist, and I know that mightn't sound that bold, but he doesn't produce a lot of assists. Certainly in a red shirt, I can't really remember too many where he's produced an assist. So I'm gonna say, on the back of his recent performances, I think he's been really good, Kirkes, actually, and he was fantastic in the Champions League. And I reckon if Liverpool do play the same formation, I reckon there'll be an opportunity for young Milos to get up the pitch, and so I'm gonna go Kirkes
Kirkes,
assist.
interesting. Yeah, he's such an energetic player, isn't he? Loves to get forward, loves to overlap. So interesting to see how he'll be utilised come Saturday. Tom, I've gone for 2-0. I've gone Ekatike and Frimpong on the score sheet. A clean sheet away from home. I know it's a tricky place to go, but judging off the Galatasaray game, you've got to be confident, surely.
Yeah, confident, and And I think the thing is, as a Liverpool fan, you're always hopeful. I think, it's sort of embedded in us that there's always a chance of winning a football match, and I think one of the problems last week against Spurs was the fans lost hope in the stadium, and I think that was the end result was booing the team, and Arnie Slot said that they were booing the players. I don't know, Arnie. I think they might have been booing you. um, but yeah, I think there's always hope. It's no game's ever easy, and as I say, if Liverpool turn up and do the business, we should get over the line with the points. I do fancy Brighton to score. I think they've got I think they've got enough quality in there to score, and Liverpool is still not rock solid at the back. But I fancy Liverpool to get goals. I'm going to say 2-1.
2-1 win away from home. I'd like that to be the case. We haven't picked up too many points at the Amex in recent times, so let's hope this weekend we can turn it around. We've got the likes of United, Chelsea, Villa starting to drop off that touch as well. So yeah, if any of those fans are listening, keep slipping up and we can get that top five spot. But Tom, let's hope the Reds can get the win. But nonetheless, it's a busy time here at Reds Down Under.
Yeah, chocker, mate. Absolutely chocker block. Like, doing the weekly show was busy enough, and then we said, right, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna have countdown to kick off as well. Uh, so yeah, no, it's all been really busy. Or certainly I will be at um the Anfield Wrap event in Sydney on Sunday. So if you see me, come over, say hello. Um, and we did a recorded special with Neil from the Anfield Wrap a couple of weeks ago, which will come out next Tuesday. So unless something dramatic happens, we're not going to have a weekly show next week. It'll be the special. Um, but it's just a real sort of behind the scenes look at what it's like to make the Anfield Wrap and his perspectives on the football club and the transfer strategy and the business we've done. It's just a really good sort of one-to-one chat, and I think content that you don't necessarily see on the Anfield Wrap. So I think people might find it interesting.
It's going to be an interesting watch, that's for sure. And the one way to watch it, Tom, as always, is to be following across all socials here on Reds Down Under. But in the meantime, let's hope the Reds can get the win. And as always, we sign off with Up the Reds.
Up the Reds, mate.